What a trip the past few years must have been for one of Canada's brightest musical stars. Aysanabee went from working in the mines to journalism to navigating the pandemic to Juno Award winner. Along the way, he got in touch with his roots, had life-changing conversations with his grandfather, and even reclaimed his surname.
Yeah, I was 8 years old when I went to residential school. Somebody from outside the government person said if you don't send your kids out, you guys are not going to help you. That's why we went to school. They had no choice. It was over 300 kids that went to school. And I used to cry. I was lonesome. I was wondering why I was sent here. And I didn't know why. What did I do wrong?
One of the most powerful album openers I've ever heard. Aysanabee is bringing his journey and his story to Regina for the Skygazer Soirée, and he joins us right now. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
What have the past few years been like for you?
Yeah, I think now I'm having a bit more time to kind of sit and reflect on it. I think because I signed with Ishkade back summer of 2021, and it's kind of wild to think that much time has gone by. It's been 3 years now, so it's like everything happened fairly quickly, and I think I was just on the road a lot, and it all kind of came from this like place of stillness, this place of we just heard a clip of my grandfather speaking, and that was like one of many conversations that happened over 2020, right? And it wasn't going to be an album, it was just recordings, and then holidays came around, and then I was listening back, and then started writing a song, and then wrote 2 songs, and then thought it was going to be like, I thought now would be the time when maybe I'd be finishing that album.
Really?
Well, I was working as a journalist, and I had like props to all you guys doing the work, because like it's a very thankless job, and it's a very stressful job, and a lot of the times I feel like you end up getting home and being pretty tired, because like I feel like reporting the news is a lot of the time it's not good news. It's like it's pretty heart-wrenching stuff sometimes. So like I remember finishing a shift and being like, okay, well, I'm pretty exhausted, I just kind of want to put on Netflix and shut my brain off for a while.
That's how I feel, yes.
So like I thought that would be my whenever I wasn't too exhausted from that, I would start working on this album again. But then all by chance met Ishkade Records, and I think sometimes it's easy for me to be like a little bit lazy when it's just like myself, but then like when there's other people that start to, not sure if like depend on me, or like when I'm working with other people and other people have skin in the game, I feel like that makes me work so much harder, because it's not just me anymore, it's like other people. And so then I really just went to work and worked on this record, and got to work with Hill Kirkudis, who helped produce the record, or who did produce the record. And the record came out 2022, and all the stuff happened from then onwards. It's just been kind of crazy. And I remember even when I signed with Ishkade, I started working with my agent Steph like later that year, and she was just like, all right, well, we gotta get you like playing everywhere and anywhere. That's my goal for you. And I said, let's do it. And so I was working on the record, but then also,
Is that something that you dreamed of doing? Did you want to play everywhere and as much as possible?
yeah, definitely. And so it was like incredible, but like I was still working full-time in media, right? So it was like I had 2 full-time jobs at that point, and then like at one point I just used up all my sick days, and I kind of had to make a choice, right? I was like, well, I can't just like call in sick and then like appear on a stage somewhere. So it's like at that point, I had, the record label, I had an agent, I had a team, and it would have been like, a team who had my back, and it would have been like a huge disservice to not just them, but myself to like not really give it a go. So I put in my 2 weeks and did music full time, and yeah, it was everywhere and anywhere, and like, you know,
It's incredible to hear you talk about juggling those things, because I want our listeners just to hear a sample of the first song in case they haven't heard it yet.
Took me from my mother's, hey, took me from my brothers, hey. Oh, Father, I don't even know your name.
Look, Aysanabee, it doesn't take long to hear this. I was listening to the album last night, and I thought right away, nobody's first album, let alone the first few seconds, sound this good. Did you always know you had an incredible talent?
no, I work really hard at it, and I think, if I'm being completely honest, there's definitely always this like weird imposter syndrome, I found I'm dealing with currently. Like, it's like to kind of get that much recognition and stuff, it's always it's this weird, this weird feeling, because I'm stumbling over my words right now, but yeah, that's just a weird thing I'm definitely coming to terms with, and working how to kind of maneuver and move forward with that. But yeah, I work really hard at it, and I think like it's interesting. Like, I think one of my skills in life, just from my upbringing, is just to have like this will just to keep doing things, even though you just this will to keep doing things, even if like you hit walls and you make mistakes or whatever, you just kind of get back up and just kind of keep walking towards it. Because yeah, I played music for well before that record came out, and was like still playing in bars, and playing to sometimes playing to just the bartender and the bouncer, like so it's like I definitely put in the time. But yeah, like
Did you have an epiphany years ago while mining that you wanted to chase these musical dreams?
yeah, I think it was just falling through the ice. It was falling through the ice, and kind of having that near death experience of just like, wow, this is it. Like, at that point, I haven't really, I felt like I didn't really do much with my life. I just, I grew up in Northern Ontario, and I didn't try to do music. I was playing music, but I didn't know how music worked. I didn't know how the industry worked. I didn't even know how to, you know, release a record on a large scale or anything. So like, I think having that near death experience, and like falling through the ice and being like, wow, this could be my like icy grave, and I didn't even try. So I think that was the moment where like I made a promise to myself that like if I made it out of that ice, because we were in the middle of nowhere, mind you, too. So like for anyone listening, like, I'm in Toronto now. That place I was in the river in like February, like -40, -50, like it was like you would have had to like take a 20-hour drive north, past Thunder Bay, go. Actually, it's like I think it's 16 hours to Thunder Bay, then it's like another 6 to Ear Falls,
Wow.
another 3 hours up some logging roads, another 2 hours up some ice roads, and then skidooing in like another like 60 something kilometers across these lakes and portages, and like that's where we were camping and working, and like so like really in the middle of nowhere. So if anything went wrong, like you're kind of on your own, right? And so yeah, like I just we worked with axes, and so like I stuck my axe in the ice and was just like pulling myself across, and the ice kept breaking and breaking and breaking. Like I'm in snowshoes, so even if I get them off, like if I got them off, like I'd be under the ice, and I wouldn't know how thick the ice is downriver, and like if I'd even be able to like punch through it, or if I'd even have movement, because it was so cold. You only have like maybe a couple minutes before you just start losing feeling in all your limbs. So yeah, like that was the moment where I was like, I'm gonna really give this a shot, and I moved to Toronto, and I ended up working as a journalist, and then it's interesting. It took like a global pandemic to kind of refocus me again, and be like, wait, I'm not doing the thing I said I was going to do.
Right. Well, and speaking of that, I mean, that's right around the time that obviously you start recording your grandfather. Why was that something like what led you to that? Why did you start doing that?
Like I had moved my grandfather into long-term care, and like in the very top of like when the pandemic wasn't even in declared in Canada. So then when it was, I was on the plane back to Toronto to go back to work and work in news. And so like I was like working in the newsroom and just doing stories on outbreaks at long-term care facilities, the place I just moved my grandfather into. And not everyone was making it through the outbreaks. So that's what prompted the conversations of just calling him every day. And I think just through talking to him and kind of struggling with my own roots, like because like my grandfather moved me off reserve when I was 4, and I went to like live with him in the Nepal, Manitoba. So I didn't grow up like submersed in my culture and my community. So like kind of reconnecting was always like a bit harder for me, because like I come from a fly-in remote reserve in northern Ontario, where like buying a pepper is like $20, like
Right.
it's so yeah, like I think having those conversations and kind of hearing these stories he used to tell me, and like I was remembering details and that he was forgetting, and like that, like all that combines, like me me reconnecting and him losing these kind of core memories, and then like all this family history. That's what prompted the me recording the conversations, was just to kind of like hear and record as much of his stories as I could, so that like if I ever have a family, I could be like, this is where we come from, this is who we come from. And yeah, so I just started like interviewing him essentially for the all of 2020.
And I love that part of the story, Ace and Abby, just because, I mean, I'm at the age where I'm kind of feeling the same thing with my parents and my older relatives of, I don't remember the stories as well as they do, and I want to keep them alive. But, as you were doing that, when did it turn into music?
It was the holidays. It was the holidays. Like we still weren't allowed to visit family. So I was just like sitting in my room. I had like a little home studio at the time, and like was just like playing back the recordings. And yeah, the first song that was written was CC Bano, and my grandfather was like telling me like a story uh, about his father, CC Bano. And then I just asked him like what does CC Bano even mean? And like he didn't know what his father's name meant, and that just kind of moved me in a way. And so I started writing a song, and like so that's the end of 2020, and I kind of have like a piece of a song written, and I thought, okay, I thought this is something I could do. This is how I can like immortalize just like a small piece of the story. And that's when I thought I'd be working on this for the next 4 years, when I wasn't too tired from news all day. Um, so
What
yeah, it was never like intended to be an album when I initially started interviewing him.
what does CC panel mean? Do you know?
I actually still don't know. Um, there's the only person in my immediate family who still spoke our language was my aunt, Barbara, but she had passed away before I'd even moved my grandfather into long term care.
So you turn those stories into music. Like I said, it's just beautiful album. Why sample the sound of fire?
When I think of like hanging out with my grandfather was an outdoorsman, and I when I think of like spending time with him as a kid, I think of like him just taking me, and like he was really into like kind of bow hunting, and so like he would kind of just take me out into like these kind of rural areas, and we'd kind of just like walk around, and we'd end up mostly just doing target practice. I don't think he ever thought he would take me to actually like go running through the forest, but then we just like, yeah, chill, like sit down, like start a fire, like cook some hot dogs or something. And so yeah, these sounds are very much sounds that I remember from my childhood of being with my grandfather. Because yeah, my grandfather went to Sandy Lake to visit me when I was 4 years old, and he's like, "Hey, like, where's Evan?" And everyone's like, I don't know," because I was living with my aunt at the time, and they're like, "I don't know." And he like went to find me, and he just found me like walking down some dirt road, and he's like, "Well, I guess I'm gonna watch this kid. I'm gonna take him with me." And say, "Go back to the Palm Manitoba."
I'm wondering though, like you're composing a song? When do you say we got to get some fire crackling in here? Like, how did that happen?
I think it was just to kind of create an atmosphere of of how I remember my grandfather, of how I remember him trudging through the forest and climbing trees and building like these like contraptions in the forest, and versus like, when I talked to him on the phone, he was kind of getting weaker by the day and like a little more breathless, and so to kind of just kind of help build this space of like how I remember him.
I'm glad that you mentioned that you'd go bow hunting with him. Can you still practice your archery skills in Toronto?
Oh yeah, actually, I got really big into it back in the pandemic because you're only allowed to leave your house to exercise.
Right. Where did you go? Because I saw some videos and I was like, I don't know if this is in Toronto or in the bush. Like I saw some buildings in the background, but where were you going in Toronto to practice your archery?
So like I didn't even know there was an archery range. Like we were biking, me and my friend Rich. Like we would bike up and down the Don Valley for like our exercise out of house activity before we go back to our homes. And then we were biking one day and we just saw someone come out of the bush with like a bow and arrow, and like we both looked at each other and we're like, I guess we should go to that wherever he came. So we walked where he came out of, and it like just opened up into this archery range. It's the only free public archery range in the whole GTA. And it was like just beside this path we were biking up and down. So like I immediately like ordered some bows and some arrows, and then like me and Rich just started doing that for like our outdoor activity. And
And
yeah,
you got a recurve, I see, yeah?
yeah. It just I think I had like a 30-pound pull and a 40-pound pull. I ended up getting like a 20-pound pull because like sometimes like, yeah, sometimes Rich's partner would join us, and like those, even those 30 pounds can be,
The
quite
shoulders can get sore.
hard to pull if you're like a littler person. So yeah, like those 20 pounds are nice for anyone to kind of just be able to hold that forever.
Well, we got lots of good places you can practice your archery out in Saskatchewan. Have you been here before?
Yeah. Like I've driven through there a couple times. I stayed. We were supposed to play in Saskatoon, me and Allison Russell, back in February, and we ended up getting stranded like in Rosetown.
Okay.
Um, like because we had driven, like it was crazy. Well, like the blizzards that happen out there.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
5 feet in front of you, and like we ended up like Allison just made the call. She's like, you know what? Like we can make it there and do line checks and play the show, but at the end of the day, the audience is going to have to drive back in this. So it's better in everyone's best interest if we just cancel the show. So we still had like 2 hours, or it would have been 2 hours to drive.
Yeah, it's a ways away, especially in a storm. Yeah.
But I think it would have been like we were only like 100 kilometers away or whatever it was. So yeah, we ended up just staying in at like I think there's like one hotel there, the Travelodge, I think.
Probably. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So how was Rosetown then?
It was great. I think like I think someone had done something weird, but then like it ended up being really great. Like we ended up like there was like a pool table in the hotel, and then we ended up just chatting. Like a lot of the local like regulars were just kind of really curious of like, what are you guys doing here? And so we ended up just like hanging out with them, and there was like a karaoke thing, and so like just playing pool and doing karaoke.
I don't think multiple Juno Award winners typically come into the karaoke bar at Rosetown, so would have been a hell of a show, that's for sure. Ace, Abby, I appreciate this, and it's going to be a lot warmer when you come to Saskatchewan this time. So thank you so much for coming.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to it.